BRICS was set up to degenerate our dollar and take our dollar as the standard, take it off as the standard. And that's okay if they want to play that game, but I can play that game too. So anybody that's in BRICS is getting a 10% charge.
Is that immediate, sir? Or
Yeah,
is that
pretty soon.
if they engage in some behavior?
Well, if they're a member of BRICS, they're going to have to pay 10% tariff just for that one thing. And they won't be a member long. I thought BRICS was, I said this about a year ago, and it largely broke up. But, there are a couple that hang around, but I thought it largely broke up. BRICS is not, in my opinion, not a serious threat. But what they're trying to do is destroy the dollar so that another country can take over and be the standard. And we're not going to lose the standard at any time. If you have a smart president, you will never lose the standard. If you have a stupid president like the last one, you would lose the standard. You wouldn't have the dollar as you. And if we lost the world standard dollar, that would be like losing a war, a major world war. We would not be the same country any longer. We're not going to let that happen. The dollar, you ever hear the expression, dollar is king? The dollar is king. We're going to keep it that way, okay? And I'm just saying, if people want to challenge it, they can, but they're going to have to pay a big price. And I don't think any of them are willing to pay that price.
Happy Bitcoin Thursday, freaks. It's your host, Odell, here for another Citadel Dispatch, the interactive live show focused on actual Bitcoin and freedom tech discussion. That intro clip was none other than President Trump himself talking about the risk of the US dollar losing reserve currency status as Bitcoin blasts through all-time highs. I can't really imagine a better timeline for Bitcoin, but we are not here to talk about Bitcoin today. If you want to hear about Bitcoin, we'll have Rabbit Hole Recap tomorrow at the same time as this show. So 24 hours from now. But it's pretty hard to contemplate a setup for Bitcoin amid macro uncertainty, high interest rates than today. Anyway, with all that said, Dispatch, as always, is funded by our audience, viewers like you with Bitcoin donations. We have no ads, no sponsors. Dispatch is fully in the business of losing money and sending out signal. So thank you, freaks, for sending your sats. Best way to support the show is in our Nostr live chat. All the links are at citadeldispatch.com. You can zap live during the show, or you can zap after the show through Fountain Podcast app in your favorite app store. The top zap through Fountain Podcast for last week was Poopsicle. Great name with 800 sats saying good wallet, very slick. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you all. As always, Citadel Dispatch is available on every major platform, every podcast app. Search, subscribe, share with your friends. It really does go a long way to helping out the show. With all that said, we're going to be talking about something completely different. We're going to be talking about secure private messaging. We have return guest Jeff here, who is the creator and lead maintainer of the White Noise app. How's it going, Jeff?
It is going very well. Thanks, Matt.
And we have ride or die freak Max Hillebrand here, who I don't exactly know what your role is at White Noise, but you seem to be heavily involved. Why don't you let us know what your role is?
I do everything but code. Someone has to do the other stuff.
So
Chief cat herder.
you're the PM of a two-man team, basically.
Oh no, there's more than two of us now.
Oh, nice. How many are there?
I mean, there's
6,
I don't know,
7.
somewhere between 5 to 7, yeah, something like that. Not everybody's full time, but yeah, we've got a good number of people on it now.
That's badass. Anyway, Jeff, you joined the show about a year ago when this project was very much in the napkin writing phase. What is white noise? Why should people care?
Yeah, it was really fun to come on and talk about it last year. It's actually funny because the actual napkin writing phase was a couple of months prior in Bedford at the cheat code conference, and me and Max basically sat in the corner and just talked about what if you could potentially do something like this. I think we spent about 3 hours just going back and forth on this. So from that came this idea that we need to fix DMs. We knew this, everybody knew this. No one had put their hand up to do it, and for a long time I just said I'm definitely not smart enough to figure this out. But since no one else was going to do it, I finally was like, well, I guess I'll take a crack and see how far we get. And about a year ago, we kind of came around to the idea that MLS, this protocol that is now an internet standard, stands for Messaging Layer Security. That was going to be the backbone of how we were going to do this sort of double ratchet encryption to get really secure messaging over Nostr. And so what I had to figure out was basically how do you do delivery and identity, because MLS doesn't care about those two things. They just kind of leave that to whoever's going to implement it. So how do we do those things in a way that preserves metadata and privacy and things like that over Nostr public relays? So that was the trick in figuring out how to get that to all work. And then since then, building white noise as sort of the reference client and building libraries that help you stitch MLS into any Nostr client so that lots of other clients can put in secure messaging.
Awesome. I mean, so the general concept is kind of like a Signal type app in terms of security and usability, but without relying on a centralized party like Signal to manage the servers and the social graph, right?
Exactly. So like Signal, I mean, I think Signal's a pretty good actor, but they've got a foundation that's based in America. They've got a CEO. They have a $50 million a year operating budget. So they have to do a bunch of things that they maybe sometimes don't even want to do, right? Like they've got to give data to the government when the government comes asking. They've got to pay those server bills. And so if any of those things goes down, Signal goes down. You lose kind of the last credible, secure messenger that's around. So the idea here is, we wanted to build something that is Signal level privacy or better, but we don't have any servers. We never have to run any servers. We never have any data on people. And we use public Nostr relays as just the transport mechanism, but everything's hidden enough that it's totally fine to have those messages out in the open because you can't tell anything from them anyways.
Yeah, Nostr is obviously like a superpower protocol, right? We all know that. We all love it. But the obvious downside of Nostr was the privacy of messaging. The original NIP4 was badly hacked together, didn't protect any metadata, actually leaked private key material in theory. So it's just a really bad standard. Don't roll your own crypto is the main learning of that. And since then, we've upgraded a couple different ways of doing it, but all of them share kind of the same, or one of the major downsides is that if anyone has your public key, your npub, they see whom you're messaging and when, right? Or at least when you're receiving messages, right? So this timing metadata is leaked to anyone basically, and that's simply not acceptable, right? And so fast forward, now we have MLS, and with MLS, even if your NSEC leaks, right, your private key leaks, that adversary who has the private key still does not know whom you're messaging, right? So we go from anyone with the npub sees whom you're messaging to even if they have the NSEC, including you, if you put your NSEC on a new client, by default, your chat history doesn't move forward, right? So it's a insane improvement to the messaging.
Love it. So first of all, huge shout out to XFrog who zapped us 21,000 sats in the live chat. He said, "Let's fucking go." We have JCB zapped
Nice.
8,800 sats. We have Sawzell zapped 5,500 sats. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for supporting the show. It means a lot. I hope you like my new mic. Your sats helped pay for it. The rest came out of my pocket. So first of all, we have when we first started talking about this, we were talking about MLS being Signal's protocol, but now it's kind of come to my attention that Signal protocol is something different. What's the main differences between what Signal uses, which I guess also WhatsApp has been using, versus MLS, and what are the trade-offs there? Why'd you go with MLS instead of Signal protocol?
Yeah, so this is actually kind of it's a fun technical, I guess, timeline if you want to think about it that way. And I'll try to keep it not super technical, but originally there was protocols like OTR, off the record, which was a really simple, straightforward protocol for doing kind of a ratcheting system of symmetrical keys. So you weren't using the identity key to do the encryption, you were using another set of keys that you would derive and then encrypt your messages with. Signal was a really kind of big leap forward when it came out originally, because it was the first double ratchet system that used two of these ratcheting key derivation functions to basically make sure that, if an attacker got a key, they couldn't go forward or backward in time. So they couldn't hold on to your key and just listen to your conversation as it progressed forward and, continue to decrypt messages. And if they got a key, they couldn't grab a bunch of old messages and decrypt those with that key. So the key basically changed on almost every message. And that was a giant step forward, and why so many of these big apps ended up licensing the Signal protocol for what they were using. Signal's main drawback is, as a protocol, is that it's pairwise. So it's always just one-to-one with people that you're talking to, which works great in DM conversations. But when you get to a big group conversation, you're basically encrypting each time to every single participant. So it's basically it scales.
So when I'm in a Signal group, it's really a bunch of DMs that are just UX-wise pieced together to look like a group chat.
Pretty much, yeah. And everybody in the group has those keys, right? Yeah.
One of the huge downsides of this is that Alice can send a message to a group, but she sends a different message to Bob and a different message to Charlie. And Bob and Charlie don't know that they're receiving different messages because they're each encrypted to their own keys. So it comes with a lot of downsides. And not just for multi-person groups. Nowadays, everyone has a phone and a laptop, right? Those are two separate devices with two separate keys. And so Signal never really handled multi-device support natively. Both multi-device and groups were bolted on top after Signal was created with a bunch of extensions.
Yeah. So if I'm using Signal Desktop, if I'm in a 100-person group on Signal, and we're all using both Signal Desktop and Signal Mobile, every time I send a message, I'm really sending 200 messages that are they look like a group chat UI though.
Pretty much, yeah. And this is why Signal has
from a UX perspective.
Yeah, and this is why Signal has big servers in the middle, right? Because they do all the delivery of those messages. And in a lot of cases, the way they handle some of especially the two-party thing where it's you and another device, is that they're kind of doing some of the heavy lifting of the encryption and decryption on your behalf in certain instances. So it's good for what it was. And they, like Max said, as it progressed and evolved, they kept bolting stuff on top of it, trying to get more out of it. And they did a great job of it. But MLS kind of took a look at that and went, okay, if we were going to reimagine this as a completely open, internet standard style thing that you can upgrade and change over time and get a lot of other benefits from, how would we do this? And they took a nod from how TLS works and basically said, okay, let's use a binary tree structure. So, imagine just a pyramid, basically. And we're going to organize the members of a group into this pyramid structure. And so not only are you going to get these ratcheting keys, that give you really good forward secrecy and post-compromise security, but you're also going to get a cryptographic guarantee of what the state of the group is. And you're going to know that, hey, these are the members of the group. This is the, way that this group is functioning. These are the types of extensions it's using, that sort of thing. And that also gives you a much better than linear scaling setup than Signal has. So when you have to add somebody to a group or remove somebody from a group, you don't have to change out every single key in the group. You basically just change the path to the root and then swap out that chunk of the tree. So that's a gross oversimplification, but the idea is that just structurally it's built in a different way so that it's much more efficient when it gets to very large groups. You don't have to re-encrypt everything to every single member of the group.
So it's a more efficient improvement. Oh yeah, go Max.
MLS is basically a key derivation function, right? How can a group of people come up with the same private key, right? So that they each know the same private key. And then regardless of how many people are in the group, we only need to encrypt a message once and upload this message once because everyone knows the decryption key. But the downside then is if everyone knows this key and we want to kick out one person from the group, now we need to send to everyone -1 a new set of keys. So that doesn't scale as nicely as it could. And that's where the tree structure of MLS comes in. It's efficient way to get everyone on a new key without having to send a new message to everyone specifically.
Got it. I mean, it's trying to solve the same. It solves the same problem as Signal protocol, but it's more efficient.
Yeah,
Is there
and I
any?
guess like the beauty
Yeah.
of how we have done this with Nostr, and it's funny because like the Blue Sky folks and the Mastodon folks are all looking at MLS right now, and they really want to have something like it, but they can't figure out how to apply it in their scenario. And Nostr is perfect in this sense because we have the identity layer already. Like we have our pub keys, and we kind of bake that identity in without that being the key that you're using within MLS. So again, the cryptographic guarantee of who's in the group means that you can look at someone in the group and go, okay, that's that in pub for sure. We know that, but the keys that we're using to do messaging are different. And then the other piece is because
But you're
we have
deriving those keys from the pub key, the
no,
main and pub.
no. The in pub is literally just a pointer to say this is who this
It's just
is.
identity.
Yeah, it's just identity.
Think of it a bit like PGP subkeys, right? You have your master key that's somewhere in cold storage, and then you generate a new second subkey for signing, encrypting, verifying, right? But then your master key signs those subkeys. They're not deterministic, right? But you kind of bless the subkeys with your master key, and the same thing is happening, right? We create these key package events, which are MLS keys. They're not even Schnorr keys. They're ED25519 or something
But
keys.
I mean, they could be Schnorr keys in the future, but they aren't right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So this again gives you the benefit of if your NSEC leaks, no messages can be decrypted because messages are not encrypted to your NSEC. They're not even encrypted to your subkey, right? They're just encrypted to something that builds on top of your subkey, something like this.
Okay, so to me it seems from your overview, it seems like a direct improvement over the Signal protocol. Is there any downside trade-offs that are being, or is there any negatives to using MLS over Signal? Does Signal have an advantage there?
The only downside that I've heard really volleyed from people is that it's IEFT, so it's Internet Engineering Task Force, which is this semi-bureaucratic organization that is semi-funded by the NSA. That people are like, oh, it's whatever. But to me, it's been an open protocol that's been under tons of scrutiny by a lot of different people. It's been looked at by a lot of different researchers. I don't think it's compromised in any way.
I mean, the Signal protocol has similar concerns, but
exactly.
But anyway,
exactly.
I mean, I like to
for
put
MLS.
Yeah, go on.
For MLS, we actually have security proofs, right? There is mathematical proofs, at least for part of the spec, that they are solid. And then, of course, it's open source. It's been in progress since 2017. So a lot of people had eyes on it. I think the biggest downside to it is complexity. Like the Signal paper already was damn complex, and that was only 60 pages. MLS is like 170 pages, right? Just a spec, and then there's another spec of like 80 pages for the architecture. And then we have extensions building on top of that. So the complexity is mind-numbing. And so you're probably not going to implement it from scratch, and you're going to use a library, most likely, right? We use the OpenMLS Rust library. And, who knows, there might be backdoors in there. There's not many people skilled enough and knowledgeable enough to actually review these properly. So that complexity is the big downside.
Got it.
For sure.
So I mean, so the way I so I love Signal. I rely on Signal. I use it for pretty much 99% of my comms, whether that's personal or work comms. It's one of those pieces of software that I just like absolutely rely on. But I would put Tor in a similar bracket, except because of Tor's trade-off model, I use it much less than Signal. Like Signal finds this really nice trade-off balance. But I would put both in the same category of their threat model isn't the U.S. government or the NSA. Like if the NSA or the U.S. government wanted to take them down, we just wouldn't have access to them. Like it's just not built into the threat model. And so what's really exciting to me about white noise is it's trying to solve this same problem as Signal, but it's doing it in a way that is way more resistant to denial of service attacks, to censorship. More or less, I think the security guarantees are probably pretty similar, at least once you guys get out of beta and are out there. Like, I'm not too concerned about Signal in terms of security guarantees. I think it's more they compromise your phone and then they access your messages that way rather than compromising Signal. But like at the end of the day, like there's people behind it, servers behind it. They could shut down Signal if they wanted to shut down Signal. That's the biggest issue with Signal.
That's the biggest risk. Yeah, by far.
So, I mean, the coolest
and
part.
I would say there's on the other side though is a risk, right? That Nostr DMs are just fucked. Right? Like Signal is perfectly fine, but we need something that works with Nostr.
Yeah, my Nostr DMs are Signal. Like I tell people, like if you want to reach out to me, you can message me on Signal. Like I don't respond to Nostr DMs. They just it's been a massive failure on our part up until this point. That like not only the fact that if your NSEC is compromised, all your messages are seen, just the metadata leakage, just the idea that I'm messaging Jeff, when I'm messaging Jeff, how often I'm messaging Jeff is out there. So on that note, I see a question from BTC Pins asking about metadata leakage. Is what kind of metadata leaks when you use this?
Yeah.
How are you guys thinking about that?
This was one of the most fun things that Max and I went back and forth on for all those months that I was trying to figure out how to make this work, is that I'd run into something and be like, okay, how do we get around this? So basically none is the answer. And the reason that we can say that and the reason that that works is what happens when you actually publish to a relay. So say, you and Max and I are in a group. I want to, we've already gone through the handshake process to get us all into the group. When I send a message, I am taking the message, which is actually just an unsigned Nostr event that we just put into the payload of an MLS encrypted object. So we take the unsigned event, and the reason it's unsigned is that if those were ever to leak or whatever, they couldn't be published to relays then. So there's a small bit of deniability there. So we take that, we put that in the MLS object, we encrypt that with the MLS keys, and then we take that encrypted blob and we put that in the payload of a Nostr event, and we use NIP44
signed, and then that one's actually signed.
Exactly. Right? So that's a kind 445 event. That's an MLS message, basically. So it's an MLS message, but it's an encrypted thing by MLS, but then we encrypt it again with NIP44 encryption using a key that comes out of the MLS tree structure. So we don't use the two parties keys that, like you would do with normal NIP44 encryption, where it's like, I take my key and your key and we create this conversation key that we both can share and derive. We use something that comes out of the tree structure. So if you're in the group, you know this key. If you're not in the group, you don't know this key. And we use that as the key to encrypt the NIP44 stuff. And then we gift wrap that thing, or then we just publish that with a throwaway key. So what you see, if you're looking at if you're on a relay, if you're a relay operator, you get a kind 445 event that has an encrypted payload that's from a throwaway, ephemeral key that's done nothing but publish this one event and will never publish anything again. And the only tag that's on it is an H tag, which is a group ID for the group. Now, that group ID is the single piece of metadata, but that group ID can rotate over time, and you can actually have groups that will run multiple IDs at the same time. So you can obfuscate pretty quickly what the group is, how big it is, and even if you left it alone and you only had one, all that an observer can see is relative amount of activity in a group. They don't know how many people are in it. They don't know like what they're saying. They can just see like, well, it's busy or it's not busy. We don't know.
Yeah, so we're falling down basically to the underlying Nostr downsides of it's a WebSocket in ClearNet, right? And so that means there's IP leakage. We can solve that with VPN, Tor, mixed nets. At the moment, they're not implemented in white noise. In the future, they will be, and then we can do similar to how Wasabi did, a proper identity management for multiple WebSocket calls. And the second thing is then what do you query inside the WebSocket, right? If you have one WebSocket connection and you put 5 different group IDs, then the relay operator would learn that these 5 groups are interesting to the same person. But with a proper client implementation, you have one Tor identity or one mixednet path to one WebSocket with one group ID. That might not scale for many hundreds or thousands of groups in a client, but it will probably work fine. If you're very paranoid, you can do it very paranoid. If you're less paranoid, it'll be faster.
Yeah, that's really the thing that I think stands out that a lot of people overlook here is that this whole thing with secure messaging and secure comms is like it's trade-offs at every single level. And you really have to decide, okay, how paranoid am I? Like, how much does this really matter to me? If you are a activist in some horrible third world authoritarian government, like you really care about privacy and you're going to go to extreme lengths to make sure that what you use is going to be really secure. Most people don't need that level of security. And there's a direct trade-off really between UX and actual security. So I think it's just one of these things that over time, we're going to see different clients do this in different ways for different audiences. And I think that's a great thing.
So right now, it's up to the user to protect their IP address. It's just clear net hitting. There's no real precautions happening. And my understanding is you guys, it's the current alpha app or beta app, whatever you want to call it. I called it a beta app. Max called it an alpha app. So we'll go with alpha. Has fixed relays that are chosen, I believe. What are those relays, and why did you go with fixed relays instead of having people choose their relays?
So it's not really fixed. What we try to use the outbox model as much as possible. So what we do is we've got a couple of relays, Primal, Damus, and Nos.lol, I think, and then we use Purple Pages as just a discovery relay, and we use those principally just out of simplicity to make sure that we get the thing running off the ground. But every time you publish to someone specifically, so whether that's a key package, you're publishing to key package relays that you then specify. If you're a brand new key pair, we're going to give you the default ones anyway, so you're going to start with that. When you send a welcome message to someone, you're sending to their inbox relays, so the same ones that you would send a NIP17 DM to. And then when you send messages for a group, every group specifies in its creation which relays they want to use. So again, we default those right now to those same 3 relays. We actually have relay settings already built. I just turned it off last night because there was a few little UX things in there that people would just end up confused by. And so it was like, all right, I'll turn this off for a few days and fix this and then put it back on.
That all makes sense. I mean, the reason I bring that up is because, I've worked in a volunteer capacity with HRF, Human Rights Foundation, for probably like 7 years now, working with activists. And activists specifically activists that are relatively incentive aligned with the US government feel completely fine doxing their IP address to X or to Signal, right? Like that's the Signal trust model right now. Signal knows your IP address. And so you can see a similar setup here where you choose because the relay is the relay that's receiving the original event is who's seeing the IP address. So you can presumably like the easy low level way of handling this kind of IP leakage is choosing your relays accordingly in terms of who you want to actually leak that information to.
Exactly.
And of course, running the relays yourself, right? Even in the very long-term future, we have relays on the phone. We have Tor Onion services that you run on the phone. So we can have it this more peer-to-peer, where you actually have the relays on each other's phone with neck entropy syncing among them. This is all doable in the long run. We just wanted to get something out of the door first, right?
Yeah. So again, part of the beauty of MLS is that it is not it's very agnostic to that delivery and the identity system, right? So delivery right now, yeah, we're using Nostr relays, and we're using it in ClearNet and all the rest. But you kind of incrementally can upgrade all these parts of the whole stack and make it so that you can do, whatever is it, Nostr relays syncing peer-to-peer with neg entropy over Bluetooth or whatever it is. Like, you can upgrade that delivery mechanism in a lot of different ways, or have multiple different ways available for people to use.
This is actually one interesting thing that about message delivery, right? That regular chat messages can arrive out of order, and your client will perfectly fine align them properly, right? So I think this is an improvement that Signal doesn't have. Not 100% sure. There are some messages called commit messages that basically change the state of the group, like adding or removing someone, and those need to arrive in order. So here we have to be a bit more careful. But with regular chat messages, you can easily convey them via, Bluetooth a week later.
We got 2 zaps from anonymous people. One, his name is unknown, and the other one is Anon. They both zapped 21,000 sats. Thank you for sending me freedom money anonymously. Your support is appreciated. So to me, the coolest. Okay, so first of all, I love that it's an open source, open project. There's probably going to be many different implementations, different apps that are like handling this in different ways. And so we can have different choices in terms of trade-off balances and whatnot. We can have the max approach that's like hyper hardcore and very aggressive and hard to use. And then hopefully we'll have like very easy to use, options. I mean, to me, the best part about Signal is that I like my 90-plus-year-old grandma uses Signal because it's the only way she gets baby pictures. Like that's why Signal is such an amazing project, is because she's actually capable of using that. She would never be using PGP. So I think white noise can fill both sides of the equation, and the hard part is how do you actually do that in like a UX forward way. But the answer is probably multiple different apps built by different teams that are all interoperable with each other. Anyway, with all that said, that was very long-winded and not actually where I wanted to go with this. Let's just get back to basics really quick. We have the white noise app right now. It's available on Android. It's not available on iPhone yet. I believe you guys are waiting for the test light to be approved. People click the test light button on the website, whitenoise.chat, and it says it's full. It's not actually full yet. No. It's just not approved yet.
Right.
Now, the coolest part about white noise to me is that I can take my Nostr identity, my already established, mature Nostr identity that has a huge social graph, and plug it into this thing and have all my friends there, right?
Correct.
You guys don't have Amber support yet, which means that you have to just put your bare NSEC in, your private key, directly into the app. Apparently, I might be one of the only idiots in the world who actually just did that and just raw dogged my NSEC. Everyone's like making burner accounts. What are your thoughts on that at this point right now? Did I just rug myself? Do I have to create a new NSEC at some point?
You're fine. You're fine. The NSEC is stored in the secure element on your phone. Like we're using the actual hardware security feature in the like operating system level. So you're fine. That said, Amber is definitely like top of the request list. So it's like definitely going to come soon, but it's non-trivial to set up for the way the app is set up because most of the code runs in Rust. Kind of one layer down. So we're kind of jumping a couple of fences to make Amber work.
But there's actually one cool thing of we're pushing the envelope here, and the Rust Nostr library maintained by Yuki, right? He's actively started working on Amber support, I think because of us, because we bugged him about it. So we're moving the ecosystem forward. It just takes a while. There's on iOS, by the way, there's Aegis, the name of the key signer app.
Aegis.
So hopefully we get to support that at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought it was hilarious. I was like, as soon as I could download, I just downloaded it, just immediately just dumped
straight away.
In it.
Hey man, that's fine. That's what I do too.
And then
we all know.
Then I opened up Nostr and it's like Gigi and Callie. They're all like, "Oh, connect to me," and they're like clearly using burner accounts. So I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm just, whatever, YOLO, just make it happen." But anyway, to me, that's the single coolest part. And then if you don't have a Nostr account already and you sign up for white noise, you're basically creating that Nostr identity. So at any point in the future, that social graph can then follow you if you want to use an Instagram competitor or a Twitter competitor or one of the other apps. It could be one of the biggest adoption drivers. I mean, if you guys are successful to new users on Nostr, and maybe they start with private messaging and then move over to the others. Maybe the other stuff is social. I don't know. They can plug and play.
That's a superpower of Nostr. We can really just automatically create a key for people. I was even in favor of doing it fully automatic by default for everyone. Like you open the app and you're instantly in the chat list and can write messages, and we just give you a random name and stuff like this. kind of toned that down by now so that we actually have a little bit of a starting UX, and you can set your own profile name and stuff like this. But that's, I think, what sets Nostr apart so much, and we should definitely leverage it to make it as easy, instant in the background by default to give you a new identity.
Yeah, this is actually the problem with Apple right now, because they wanted to have a login, and I'm like, there's not a login. You just hit create, and it creates a new key pair, and you're ready to go. And they're like, no, tell us what to do. We're like, okay, so that's
Please give
actually
us
the
a
problem.
key.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I'm like, we can't. It doesn't work like that. So in any case,
you gotta just play the game. It's a Nostr login.
yeah, no,
We'll
I know.
give
You gotta,
them
like,
bacon.
Yeah,
you gotta talk their language. I mean, like, people give Primal shit all the time, but Primal has apps on iOS and has a built-in wallet on iOS. And how did we do it? And we did it through, like, playing their game, right? There's in-app
Right.
purchases for the in-app credits that you can also get from our other multi-platform apps, and it's not just iPhone. And like, that was, they weren't going to understand Zaps, but they can understand in-app credits and Nostr logins, and you kind of have to. But I will say that this project does ride or die on multi-platform. Like, Signal is completely useless if it's Android only.
For sure. And that's part of what's taken so long here is, I knew that from the get-go. And so it was like, this is never going to be on the web. I mean, it might be on the web in some distant future, but that's definitely not the place it was going to start. And building for multi-platform is time consuming.
Yeah. So then my next question for you is, Jack Dorsey got a lot of press recently for his vibe coded project. I mean, it's got to have been vibe coded. He's into
100%.
vibe coding right now. BitChat, which is Bluetooth mesh. I mean, to me, it's cool. I played around with it. It's cool. I don't really live in, like, a high population density area, so, like, I basically just tested it with myself. And actually, I just implore people, consider not living in a high population density area. It might be the best decision you can make for your family. But the dream is a Signal type app that eventually, that if I lose internet access and I want to switch to mesh, that it just automatically does it in the background. It does both, right? In good times it uses internet. In bad times it uses mesh. And if someone in the mesh has connection to internet, then it also uses internet in that situation. How do you guys think about that? Is that something that you, like, at least high level roadmap? I know it's still super early.
It's a long way out, but yeah, I mean, I'd love to do a lot of that stuff. I think, the Meshtastic stuff, the Bluetooth Low Energy, using radio. I think there's, like, a lot of funny stuff you can do. And again, since MLS doesn't care about the delivery mechanism, we can do whatever we want. So I think there's...
And I think we get a lot of this for free from Nostr, right? Like, imagine you have your Citroen, your local relay on the phone. How events get into that relay is totally out of spec, even for white noise. Right? So you could have a third-party... I forgot Koala was working on something.
Samiz.
Anyhow, like, exactly. You have that fills your local relay. White noise pulls from the local relay. It works already today. Well,
and then there's a guy,
but...
Liberty Farmer has Hamster, which is Nostr events over ham radio.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, we could do carrier pigeon signed events if we wanted to. It would just be very inefficient.
Very slow.
And then my other question for you was something I completely forgot now. I don't know.
Maybe to highlight one of the cool features, I think, is that it's a standard and a library, right? Maybe that's the big downside of Signal. It's not really a specification, right? They have a paper, they have multiple papers, but it's kind of like Bitcoin. It's code by specification, or like the other way around. So it's very difficult to re-implement it from scratch. And so most people, there is a Signal library, and you can use that, but you're kind of pigeonholed into sticking with that. And their MLS shines. It's very, very thoroughly specified. They have test vectors for everything. So it is much more doable to do an implementation from scratch. Not easy at all, but doable. And then on top of that, with our Nostr side of things, you don't need to have access to a special server in order to get your account or to deliver the messages, right? So with Nostr and MLS together really means that it's going to be so easy to create a new client that does whatever you want it to do, right? And I'm really looking forward to have a client, for example, managed specifically for managing chatbots that are still interoperable with all the others. But these types of niche products, niche ideas are doable. So we get so much superpower just from Nostr. It's unbelievable.
I love that this is the conversation while we're just pumping to new all-time highs in the background. Look at us.
So it's
I mean,
not
that was
all-time high in gold, by the way.
yeah, whatever.
Ooh.
It's a narrative thing more than anything else. It's a vibes thing. That was my question.
Yeah, go ahead.
My question was like, how hard is it for Amethyst to add this or Primal to add this functionality? I mean, that seems like the holy grail. The holy grail is someone signs up to Primal to shitpost and they have signal level message capability.
So that's the other thing that took a long time. Multi-platform obviously was a big deal, but really I was simultaneously building libraries for how the Nostr part of the MLS stuff works, so that we would have a consistent way for clients to implement this. Because when you're building interoperability in secure messengers like this, the security is based on the weakest link in the stack, right? So if you've got 3 different apps and they've implemented this in slightly different ways, I mean, 2 things. One, if they get it wrong, they can just fork the group and like half the group goes over there and half the group goes over there, when there's a change in the group because they've got something wrong. On the other side, like they can easily just break the entire security model by doing something incorrectly. So we really need to have, some very well-tested, well-audited implementations of both the actual underlying MLS protocol, but also, the glue protocol that I've written in the NIP, NIP-EE, that talks about how to apply MLS to Nostr. And so we've put all of that into the Rust Nostr libraries. So there's a couple of crates there that are pretty extensible and I think pretty nice at this point. We are going to help collaborate with somebody who's working on a TypeScript MLS implementation, and then we'll build the kind of glue library that goes in between on that one as well. So yeah, there's in theory, the idea here is that like white noise is part of our work, but actually a huge part of our work is also just helping other clients implement this properly so that we've got that interoperability across every client that wants it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's again, right, we're piggybacking on the open MLS ecosystem. We started to write our own TypeScript library. Then Jeff finds that a guy's already doing it, right? There's a Kotlin library, there's a C# library, a C++ library, 2 Rust libraries, right? So because this is an internet standard, we don't have to do all of the work, which is great. And then since the flagship client libraries are in Rust, we can actually do rather easy language bindings into almost anything. Now that's not optimal for some projects, specifically in the web. But for example, for Amethyst, right, we can have Kotlin bindings to the Rust Nostr library, and Vitor is fine with that. That would work for him. And so we're really making quite good progress of getting all of the major clients onboarded to this. And just to do a little bit of public pressure so that they actually follow up on the promises, we have Primal, Amethyst, Coracle, Damos, Shopster, Plebeian Market. KeyChat is already working on MLS as well. Iris, really a lot of different apps that are seriously considering to integrate MLS. Now, obviously, it's a lot of work and it might not be priority, but the will is there, and hopefully we can have a proper industry standard to fix DMs so that we keep the interoperable benefit. I would love to have something as interoperable as NIP4, but more secure than Signal. If we have that, then fuck yeah.
On the Primal side, like we intentionally never left NIP4 for like the stopgap NIP17 or anything like that because we were waiting for you guys. Like it just didn't make sense to like move the user base over to what was very obviously a stopgap when the goal was ultimately what you guys are trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's
I've had that
there's a big,
conversation with Million as well. So
yeah,
he's aware. He gets it.
and it's just a question of priorities and implementation timeline. But I mean, priority wise, it's pretty high up there. It's just how long does it take to actually implement in a secure way, in a responsible way. And I will say, to the
And
earlier
this is where
point, by the
libraries
way,
come in.
yeah, to the earlier point on the IP address leakage, right? Which we handle pretty well at Primal, in the Grok brain way, in the low IQ way, the simple way, which is people
Proxy
give us
through us.
shit. Yeah, people give us shit for the caching server. Like, the caching server is the only one who sees your IP address. And then there's a toggle in the app where you can actually broadcast to the caching server too. And then the caching server is literally the only server that sees your IP address, which is the same trust model that you see for most centralized websites. And it's optional in that regard, and anyone can run a caching server. So
this is really
we could do
a
something
crazy.
similar on the MLS side, is my point.
Yeah, this is a crazy downside of Nostr. It's so easy to get someone else's IP. I mean, literally, like, you just upload a picture on your own
It's
server.
a profile picture.
Right?
So
And
you're hitting all the profile picture
the profile
servers.
pic, exactly. Or you tag someone in an event, and he's going to be the first one to look at it, and voila, you have his IP. Like, it's scary in Nostr how this works. I mean, but it's the same with any peer-to-peer tag. Like, torrenting is really bad for privacy. Keat, for example, as well. Like, everyone in the group knows your IP. That's scary. I mean, a VPN fixes this, yes.
It's just the internet.
And you can do inbuilt stuff. Yeah.
It's literally just a trade-off of the internet.
This is the internet. Yes.
It's just people are discovering it for the first time with Nostr. It's like right in your face, because you actually see it happening.
I mean, people should remember, though, that like the entire internet used to be unencrypted. It used to just be all plain text. And it wasn't until like not even that long ago, really, that it was like, actually, now everything's encrypted. Like, I remember HTTPS becoming a thing, and it was just like, oh, okay.
It was the Snowden leaks, and then so that was 2013, and then right after that, Google basically threw their dick on the table, and they were like, we're going to deprioritize anything that's not HTTPS.
Right.
Because Google's fine with complying with the U.S. government, but they're not fine when the U.S. government does it to them without asking first. So they really pushed it forward. Okay, I mean, basic things. I mean, how are you thinking about roadmap priorities? I signed in. I couldn't. Search didn't work. Messages were failing. Like,
that's fixed right now.
Okay.
So search is fixed. I mean, look, the reason we wanted to push this out as quickly as possible, and I certainly like the old Mark Andreessen thing of, if you're not embarrassed when you release, you released way too late. I certainly feel embarrassed about a lot of the stuff that I see happening, and it's like that's good, that's fine. We want to get lots of early adopters to just play with it, right, and put it through its paces, and have us find places where like weird contact list structures come back and like wreck the app. So it's lots of these little UI things that are they are mostly UI bugs, but we need to ferret all that stuff out. We need to make sure that we get the underlying protocol stuff really hammered down. So far it's been used really in very small groups or small numbers of people. So we just need lots more usage. So yeah, I think like immediate term is definitely just keep fixing bugs, keep adding some of the really basic stuff that are obvious, like Amber, like controlling your relays, some more controlling of like how stuff happens in groups, how you evolve a group forward over time. And I think through all that, we're going to end up with something that's just way more solid and secure. And that's the point at which we'll probably really push on getting interoperability with others. And start to add some of those privacy features like Tor circuits and things like that.
Yeah, I think by the end of this year we'll have a smooth app with all of the basic features required, and stable message delivery, which is currently lacking, kind of an important feature.
Yes.
But hey, last week messages didn't go through like 100% of the time, so we made a big progress of like 40% of messages.
This is what happens when you throw away your entire front end stack and like start over a month before you want to launch. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah.
I will say
re-implement a bunch of things.
that's a bigger problem than people give it credit for, that Signal solved really well. The thought in the back of your head, if was this message delivered or not, even if it's 98%, the 2% chance that the message wasn't delivered and the person on the other side isn't ignoring you, they just never received it, makes it a way less useful communication medium.
100%.
Like I noticed that with Simple X, where it's like with Signal, I know like you're ignoring me, fine, whatever. You don't want to talk to me, fine. I understand. I noted it. But like when you're using some of these other things, you don't know, like, did they actually receive it or not?
Right. And read receipts and things like that are like delivery receipts, read receipts are things that people have talked about putting into Nostr for a long time, and no one's ever done the proper NIP for it. And so I think, we need to figure out how to do that and how we're going to do it in a way that's going to make sense for, other use cases and things. So there's a bunch of things, and this is why it's really cool that the actual messages that you're sending back and forth between, people in a group are actually just unsigned Nostr events, because basically a group is just a thread of Nostr posts. And so we can take in any kind of message that we want in there and apply it the same way you would, in a social client, but this is just in a, like a firewall, contained little box. So, we'll be able to do read receipts, we'll be able to do videos, we'll be able to do all sorts of different things inside, the messages. And they'll just be Nostr events, which is great.
This is one of my original feature requests when I'm working on this. I want to post to all my followers, like the people whom I follow, where my location or something more sensitive that I don't want to be public, but I want to share with like my 1,000 friends or something like this. Not that I have that many, but that is actually possible with MLS. You can encrypt something to a dynamic list of followers or members into the millions, right? And it will be almost instant for the people receiving this. There was actually a recent extension to White Noise published, to MLS published. MLS Lite? No, I forget the name of it.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
But they've designed it to have MLS encryption for WebRTC calls. Right. So in the webinar setting, where you want to have an encrypted webinar, where the keys for that webinar, the entire session gets done via MLS, the initial handshake, but you want someone to be able to click a button and within a couple milliseconds join the webinar. And with the standard MLS, that's not really possible, because it just takes a little bit time to build your own local state of the network or that group. And with this way, you can just prune it, and you only need a path up the tree. And so this literally scales into the millions of people for basically instant decryption of messages. And that's like the final piece needed to really have anything that you're doing on Nostr right now, you can do it encrypted with MLS with however many people you want. And that's just super exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, MLS is super cool. I mean, like the upgradability of the, of the protocol in flight is kind of cool as well. Like you can actually change the entire cipher suite of a group over time. So if you started on the kind of standard default one, which is what we're using currently, but you want to go to, a post-quantum cipher suite, which they're working on that extension right now, like you can do that without actually getting rid of the group and starting a new one. You just say to the group in a commit message, hey, we're switching to this cipher suite, and everybody agrees and they make the commit, and the group just from one message to another is now using a different, cipher suite.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I just want to reiterate, because Max kind of mentioned this in passing. If I sign in on mobile with my NSEC, and then I sign in on another mobile or desktop or whatever with the same NSEC, it's what happens in that situation? I mean, you say I don't get my message history. Do I break it? Like, does everything go to shit all of a sudden, and people get like clients get confused? Like, how does that get worked out?
So right now in White Noise, if you did that, you basically show up as two different people with the same, identity. So the only thing that would be really weird, I think, is that you would look weird to yourself more than anything. What we want to do is we'll handle that properly in the sense that, you'll add yourself just the way you do in Signal, which is usually like scan a QR code from your phone to your computer, and then your computer just connects. So this is mostly a UI constraint, but yeah, is every device client, every device that you add is a different member in the group. But because it's pretty, efficient scaling, it really doesn't matter at all. And it's a UI question of how do we just merge those two people into like the same person.
Got it.
So MLS designed this mainly for multiple devices, right? Phone and laptop. But we're in Nostr land where we have a gazillion different clients. So we actually use clients as devices. Right? So let's say you have on one phone white noise and later primal and amethyst, let's say, all three of them do MLS. You put your NSEC into each of them, or you have Amber and that does the
Whatever,
NSEC management, but anyhow. Now each device creates its own key package with its unique MLS keys, not derived from anything else, just purely random keys. And you publish them signed with your NSEC. And so now you have three subkeys, so to say, and any client will recognize that, hey, this one user actually has three keys. So let's put them all together in one group. That's most likely how it's going to work. One other approach would be that we have one app centralized on your computer that is the MLS app, and that has your database. And then we have different front ends that pull from the same database and do signing requests, a little bit like Amber does it, but for MLS database. That's probably not the way it's going to go, though.
Because then you need
but I
your
guess it would be
computer
possible.
on all the time, right?
Well, it could be on the phone, right? You would have one app like Amber that does all of your keys and database, and then you have all the other apps talk to this one phone. To this one
I think
app.
it's far better to just have every member of the group as a separate thing, a separate entity, because then if one of those members gets compromised, it's easy to prune them out of the group. Or if they've been completely offline for a really long time, like say you just lose your phone, after some point, there's just kind of an auto eviction policy where, members of the group that haven't shown up for a month are just booted immediately. So there's a lot of little things like that I think make it make more sense to use the kind of each device as its own thing. And again, they're just Nostr events that are showing up in the chat. So they're, the pub key is your actual, pub key. And so it actually is trivial for the client to like show that, this is Matt, but this is also Matt. They don't need to know that it came from two different, devices.
And so, in practice, let's say I'm signed into Primal, and I'm signed into White Noise, and you send me a message. I should be getting it on both, right? And I can reply from either.
Of course, yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
And
so
there are good ways.
When you reply, so when you reply, the receiver under the hood sees that, hey, he's replying from Primal right now, or he's replying from White Noise right now. But the user wouldn't see that. It's just the underlying app sees which key package signed an event.
And just to be clear, people in the group don't know which client you're using. They just know that it's a different client than the other one over there.
Right.
Because
Matt 1, Matt 2, Matt 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no reason to leak that metadata. It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. This is for Jeff specifically. Jeff, so obviously for White Noise, you've been funded by HRF and OpenSats. I say obviously not just because I'm part of OpenSats, but also because it says it on the website. But 3 weeks ago, or something like that, I don't know, and time just melds together. You announced participation in a project called And Other Stuff, led by Jack Dorsey. It's kind of like a vibe coding, skunkworks type of open source collective. I don't know. I think
Kali's rolling in his grave. Kali's rolling in his grave, listening to. Well, he's not in the grave, thankfully, but his stomach is turning when he heard it called a vibe coding skunkworks.
Is that not what it is?
No, it's not. So yes, AOS is a really cool project. I think the idea there is kind of twofold. One is explore other stuff because we all know Nostr has sort of kind of hit this plateau, which I think is makes sense if you're focusing just on one use case, like Twitter-like use case. I think a lot of us have a lot of conviction that it's the other things that are going to actually bring a lot more users into Nostr. And I think on another kind of aspect, Jack was really keen to try and explore what a non-VC model for a smaller, really focused group looks like. And so it's not there's no like equity, there's no setup like that. It's literally a donation. So it was, had to go through a 501c3 nonprofit. It came from his Start Small Foundation. And the remit there is you have to figure out how to work together as a group to build stuff that is going to make a material impact on the trajectory of Nostr. And
all
our
open
first
source, non-monetized.
non-monetized, all open source. It doesn't say we can't monetize things. I think that's part of the experiment, is like try to understand how we can make some of this stuff a little bit more sustainable. But certainly it's all open source for sure. And yeah, like I think, everybody at this point has understood that AI has come a very long way and is kind of unlocking a lot of new modes of working. And so the idea behind the Chorus app, which is the thing we launched in Oslo at the Freedom Forum, that was vibe coded in 5 days just before the Freedom Forum. Like we all got together and hung out for a week and basically just vibed for 13 hours a day, and launched this app 5 days later on stage in Oslo. The idea there was basically just to push ourselves to see, could we effectively keep our IDEs, our code editors closed for a week and build something that works, and like have enough conviction behind it that we're going to launch it on stage to about 1,000, more normal users. These are not like all Bitcoiners and Nostr
Mostly
folks.
not. Yeah.
Mostly not, in fact. So it was like, it was a big burden to put on the group to be like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to get Alex Gladstein to like announce this on stage, and like we don't want to make him look stupid, so like we can't let it be dumb, like we can't let it break and not work. And it was a really good experiment as well on like, how do you do community style apps, and like, does that work for normal users and groups where they're trying to raise money? These activist groups that are in Oslo were there specifically in a lot of cases to try and raise for their causes and things.
I mean, so you can see where people might get the idea that it's a vibe coding skunkworks.
100%.
You literally did that, screamed it from the rooftops, and announced the project at the same time.
Of course.
But my question to you was, so this project, White Noise, is like the exact opposite of vibe coding. It seems like it's been a very manual, long process. So I'm curious on your personal opinion. Obviously, you're not speaking and other stuff, like your personal opinion on vibe coding versus analog coding.
I think it's interesting, and it's kind of it's a nuanced one that, the hot takes never capture the actual reality of the situation. But I think, there's a spectrum, right, on everything. It's a trade-off. If you've got code that is, high consequence, so it's Bitcoin, it's money, it's cashew, or it's high consequence because, what you say could get you thrown in jail or worse. And it's something really new, like MLS is very new. It's not really something, you want to just leave up to a computer to make up, right? That's where the vibes go into full hallucination mode, is they don't really know what you're trying to do. It's brand new. You've just invented the spec. So they honestly have no idea what to do. So they just make it up and, nod their head and say, yeah, you're good, bro, go for it. On the other side of the spectrum is like, if you want to build a little web service that sort of looks like Twitter and is going to use React, well, there's like 15 years or 20 years worth of code on the internet that shows that exact same process. And so, the LLMs are really, really good at writing that sort of stuff. And I think like Alex Gleason's MK Stacks stuff is a great example of this. Like, he picked a bunch of like off the shelf, super well understood parts. He gave, the LLM tons of context about like, this is Nostr and this is how it works. And these are the things you do and don't do. And if people want to write like really simple little web clients, it can do a great job. So I think you got to pick your tool for the job. And, I think like Kale said the other day, the people that are going to win are the real programmers who apply this properly to the right, job. And so, there was a lot of manual coding that went into everything behind White Noise, but there's also a lot of vibe stuff right at the edges where it's like, okay, I just need this button to move in the app, or I need to like change the way this UI, appears. But all of the stuff that's down in the library code and all the Rust that was written to make this thing work was definitely handwritten.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, would you go as far as saying that if you actually like get the protocol to a mature spot, get the libraries to a mature spot, people might be vibe coding White Noise apps in the like MLS compatible White Noise apps in the future on top of whatever libraries you have, analog
Yeah,
code?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, on what time scale is the only question there, right? Like, is that going to take 2 years or 15? But
Right.
like, I think the LLMs will learn it and they will get better over time and they will get smarter and smarter. And to be honest, like the way I look at them is like, it's the best pair programmer imaginable because, you're in the middle of something and you're like, I actually don't know which is the better way to write this. Like, should I do it this way or this way? And you can literally have a spitballing session or a rubber duck session with an LLM and go, okay, I've learned something about the actual programming language that I wasn't sure about before. And now we've written better code in what we're actually trying to do.
Yeah, and one of the, I mean, first of all, I think this is just a stopgap, right? Like in 5 years, it's gonna write perfect code all the time, even for novel ideas. So it's kind of like writing assembly code nowadays. You just don't do that, right? You pick a higher language. But then it's also not only for the code. Like one prime example is we sneakily announced white noise and at DefHack Day in BTC Prague. Great event, by the way. You should all come. I hate doing slides. I'm way too lazy for that. But this was a presentation that really required visual aid. And so what we did is we put the entire 170 pages MLS specification, the entire 80 pages MLS architecture specification, the entire NIP with our Nostr wrapper, and I think something else. And we made a one-shot prompt with Goose, not even a paragraph. And 10 minutes later, we had an HTML coded presentation slides. I had a markdown file explaining each slide and what I should say about it, and another markdown file with commonly asked questions that are to be expected and how to answer them. And we gave that to the designer. He made it pretty in our theme. That's probably going to be obsolete, like, or automated soon as well. And that's it, right? So it was extremely easy to make this very technical talk slides just by adding more context and more compute power.
Makes sense. Awesome. Well, guys, I mean, I'm pretty excited about what you guys have built. I'm excited to see where it goes going forward. I would love if we, maybe like in 6 months or something, we do an update show on where we stand. Hopefully, I mean, I imagine you've done a lot of the hard part already, and now it's a lot of iterating and shipping updates. So it'd be great if we could do an update
20%.
episode. Yeah.
The infinite 20%.
Do you final thoughts before we wrap up? Any shout outs to the audience? Anything you want them to do? How can they be most helpful?
I mean, I guess my shout out is just like thanks to everybody for all the support and stuff on this. I mean, to me, it's felt like it's probably the longest single project I've like stuck on, doing just myself for the majority of it, for a lot of the coding. And I just have gotten so much support from so many people. I mean, Max from day one, from the napkin conversations has been there the whole time, but it's been really cool to see how much the community's been behind this. And I think the only thing I'd ask is like, just test it, give us feedback, send us, issues in GitHub, and bear with us while we, crack through and get through all of everything.
Yeah. Like be active, join us. It's an important mission that must be completed. Secure comms are fucking essential. People die without them. Nostr comms are terribly broken. We have to fix them really fast. This is not a one-man project or even a one project. This requires all of the hundreds or thousands of Nostr clients to be interoperable and work well together. So if you're working on a Nostr client and you want to improve the security of your messaging, reach out. We really want to know what's your requirements, what's your language, what's your stack, and how we can help you. And of course, if you want to join white noise coding specifically, well, come ahead. It's written in Rust backend and Flutter frontend, Dart. And yeah, like keep building. It's important stuff. And also, I guess, keep shipping. Maybe that's one fun little tidbit. If we actually yesterday wanted to make a nice quiet release, calm, don't be too loud about it. But then Juan Gault from Bitcoin Magazine was like, so yeah, I published the announcement. And I was like, oh shit. Well, we're not yet released, by the way, but I guess we'll release soon. And well, then, shit happened and it kind of blew up. So first of all, thanks for all of the cool feedback and support and enthusiasm for the project. That makes everyone happy, especially the developers who've been really deep down the rabbit hole. And it's cool to see that your code actually gets used. And thanks for the warm welcome to the Nostr community of this new project. And yeah, help us make it better.
Love it. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Freaks, it's whitenoise.chat. I'll put all the relevant links in the show notes, but whitenoise.chat if you want to test it out. As I said earlier, they're not approved on iPhone test flight yet. So if you click that button, it's going to tell you the beta is full. It is not full. But Android APKs are available, and it's also available on Zap Store, which is an awesome project. By Fran.
Yeah, and one thing to highlight here is, sorry to interrupt, is the Freedom Store, an alternative app store for iOS. We're not on there yet either because you need to be notarized, and Apple doesn't notarize us. But once we're through that hurdle, we can actually release with much less bureaucracy.
Wait, Apple needs to approve you to get on the Freedom Store?
Yes. Yes.
You need to be notarized.
Sort
it's
of,
different than
sort
a full
of.
app review, but it's still a pain in the ass.
But the process is also still labyrinthine. Like, it's crazy. It's really, really complicated.
I think once you're in test flight, it's like they accept the releases really quickly after that.
Yes.
The hard part is like just getting approved for test flight. For the freaks that don't know, Freedom Store is because Apple lost a court case in Europe, so they have to allow other app stores in Europe, but you have to be European to use it. And apparently it still requires some level of Apple permission, which I did not realize. But the people behind that are awesome. They're also behind Vexel, the peer-to-peer Bitcoin trading app where you can buy and sell Bitcoin without KYC. So it's good to see. Hopefully we see more. I mean, I don't know. I would like to have a pet unicorn. I'm not going to expect Apple to open up their ecosystem anytime soon, so I won't even say it. Guys, thank you for joining.
The fact that Zap Store is the only app store where it just worked, shows you how big Nostr is winning already.
Yes.
Yeah, Zap Store is awesome.
Literally one command and boom, it was there.
Yeah, Zap Store. And freaks, if you haven't listened, I did a sale dispatch on Zap Store. But what is he changed the domain on me? It's not zap.store anymore.
It's
Zapstore.dev. Yeah, I think there was another Zap Store that probably had a cease and desist or something.
Oh, is that what happened?
I don't know, but I looked up.
I think it was the domain was super expensive. Like the .store domain is expensive, so he didn't feel like renewing it for that price was worth it.
Okay.
But he used to have the domain, right?
Yeah, just renew would have been, I don't know, a couple $1,000 or something.
And now it's a completely different project. Access oracles that bring Zap.store is access oracles that bring world data to smart contracts. Someone else bought it.
Oh, goddamn crypto people in there, crypto money.
Yeah, and it's like Web3 too. It's okay.
Bullshit.
Well, time is a flat circle. Freaks, thanks for joining us in the live chat. You guys make this show unique. I have another show tomorrow with Pip. We're going to be talking about Vertex, which is his Nostr Web of Trust implementation. I'm pretty excited about that. That's verifiable reputations. There's going to be a lot of AI deepfakes. There already are a lot of spam, AI slop, bullshit. The only way we're going to really mitigate that at scale without a centralized third party like Elon doing KYC on everyone, which still is not very effective if you've ever used X recently, is through webs of trust and verifiable reputation. So definitely come join us for that. What did I say it was? 1930 UTC. I might have said 1630. It's 1930 UTC. And RHR tomorrow is 1630 UTC. Guys, thanks for joining. I'll be in touch. I'd love to have you back. And let me know if I can be helpful with anything.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thanks for the shout out. See you later.